So before my business and brand was what it is today, before I'd been able to sell millions of dollars of courses and coaching and stuff online, it all started with the first 100 people that followed me and the first couple of offers that I made. That's what I'm going to talk to you about in today's video. We're going to go right back to the start. I'm going to talk to you about how it all came to be. I'm going to talk to you about how I was able to navigate not actually being able to be public on social media, yet still being able to get my personal brand moving. Let's dive into it. All right. Quick backstory just to set the scene, right? I was deep in the corporate game. I'd been in New York doing it. It's when I started doing some affiliate marketing stuff anonymously via a blog because I couldn't be public, right? Then I'd moved back to Australia. And like I said, I was working on high profile cases in my corporate career in corporate finance, and I really couldn't be public. That's why I started blogging, because I could do it behind the scenes. But I knew the power of personal branding, and I wanted to start building an audience, right? My affiliate stuff, my affiliate blog, which did about 20 grand in the first year, it was starting to like move along, right? Obviously not big numbers, but I'd made a bit of money and I was testing some different strategies. And so I quite simply wanted a place where I could share what I was learning, I could give value, I could connect with my audience, and I could start to build that base of initial fans for what would ultimately become the Jacob Caris brand, right? But the issue was I couldn't be public. Okay, so if you're in this situation, or maybe you're wanting a stepping stone into creating a personal brand, but you don't want to go fully public yet, this might be something that you want to think about and potentially explore. Okay, and then I've got some really important lessons off the back of this towards the end, so make sure you stick with me. All right, we're going to move quickly. Here's what I did, all right, and I've titled this part Making It Work, which is a key lesson, right? So what I did is I went and started a free private Facebook group. What this meant was that I could create content on social media, but behind the gate of a free Facebook group, which meant that it wouldn't be public. This allowed me to dual track my corporate job with the social media side of starting to build a personal brand at the same time. And I think I dual tracked them for about 6 months before I ultimately quit my job. Okay, now with this came some pretty serious limitations that I had to work around because the group was private. I couldn't kind of aggressively promote it publicly. So how I built it, I got my initial members via the DMs and networking, like raw pounding the pavement via chat from other groups that I was in, genuinely connecting with people and saying like, hey, I'm starting this group. Here's the stuff that I'm going to be talking about. Feel free to come and join if you'd be interested in it. And all I was talking about was the stuff that I was doing in the affiliate business and what I'd learned so far. It was super early on and it was very real time, right? And so inside the group, I went live daily. Like I would literally run back to my apartment on my lunch break, still in my suit, and I would go live and talk about stuff that I was learning to really try and get this initial community moving. I posted highly, highly valuable and relevant stuff for people who are at a similar part of their journey to me, right? I shared stuff that other people were charging for. I shared real-time lessons that I was picking up. I shared real-time strategies, real-time tactics that were working for me. Like I said, I'd only made my first kind of 20, 30 grand at this point, but that's a long way down the line compared to someone who's at zero, right? So there's always someone earlier on who can get value from the lessons that we've uncovered in that initial part of our journey, right? And so I just made this a hyper valuable place for the first couple of 100 people that I got to join via the DMs. I lived up to the promise, and this kept increasing engagement. And then the algorithm started to take over and actually started to recommend the group to more people, and it started to grow on its own accord, right? As it started growing, here's what I did to really build that initial core of true fans, right? This is the source, and this crushed it. There's still people that message me about this to this day, okay? So there was a lot of people wanting to start their journey online. This is the type of person that this group was attracting because I was super early. I was like one step ahead of most of them, having made 20, 30 grand. And a lot of them were wanting to get started, and they were scared to start creating content. They were scared to go public. They were scared to be on social media, right? They were worried about what other people might say, etc., etc. And so what I had the idea, I remember one night I was sitting in my apartment, I had a buddy over, and I was like, I'll give these people a platform to start. I'll give these people a platform to overcome that fear. And so what I did was in that moment, I went live and I announced a 10-day live challenge. And I literally allowed whoever wanted to go live in the group for 10 days, right? Now, I made it easy for them in that I gave them topics to talk about each day. And that included things like their story, why they were there, their goals, the challenges that they'd faced so far, their why, all those kind of, pretty standard things. But that structure allowed people to overcome that fear in a closed environment and start getting themselves out there. A lot of those people ultimately went on to create personal brands and businesses off the back of those personal brands because they were given a safe space to overcome that fear. And here's what happened. This dominated the feed of the people in the group. I remember at the time getting messages. They're like, dude, my entire feed is people in your group going live. And it built this hyper close-knit, tight-knit community. Many of these people who still follow me today, and many of them have bought all of my products and offers, and I've done consulting and coaching with them along the way. Okay. It was really, really cool to see. And it was because I gave them something that they couldn't get anywhere else, right? Even though, as I said, I was super early on in my journey. And here's how I got a lot of people on board. I did free coaching calls. This is kind of crazy in hindsight. I did free coaching calls on what I knew at the time, right? All I'd done, make that first 20, 30 grand for anyone who completed the 10 days. This ended up being over 25 hours of free coaching while I was working full time, but it was so worth it because it helped me build that initial foundation of a personal brand. Okay. There's some key lessons that I'm going to extract from this towards the end, but I want to keep moving. So built up the initial audience, right? Gave away stuff that other people were charging for, created a heap of engagement, which got the group to start being recommended, then went above and beyond and solved a major problem for people for free by giving them a space where they could really be open and overcome a big fear that I knew a lot of them were having because I was talking to a lot of these people through the DMs and networking to actually get them to join the group because that was the only way that I could get them to do it. And then once I started doing this, I started going, all right, well, there's a bit of potential here. I reckon I can start to monetize this thing. And so here's 3 ways that I initially monetized this audience. The first was obvious. It was with more affiliate offers. So some of the stuff that I was promoting on the blog, I was sharing that back into the group and people were buying it. The tools that I was using to build the blog, I was sharing that back in. The trainings that I was going through with different strategies that I was testing, I was sharing that back in. All stuff that I personally reviewed and stood by, right? No shit that I hadn't been through myself. That was the first avenue. The second avenue was off the back of doing those free coaching calls and starting to build this really close-knit audience. People actually wanted coaching from me. It was super early on, but as I said, if you're at zero and someone's made 30 grand anonymously through blogging, it's pretty cool. It's pretty unique, right? And so I started doing one-to-one coaching calls initially for like $100, and then for $200. Then finally, the other way that I monetized it was through mini courses, little $50 courses that taught people individual things that I'd been learning along the way. This ultimately became the foundation of the course and coaching business, which didn't really take off for a couple of years because I was so focused on honing my craft as an affiliate. I didn't want to jump into this world yet, but this was my initial taste of really monetizing my knowledge off the back of building that foundational audience. Okay, so some lessons in hindsight, right? What this really tells me in hindsight when I reflect back is that you can start now, even if you have pretty serious limitations. You just have to find a way to make it fit your situation. And look, it's not going to be perfect. Your content's going to suck, but it'll all be okay if you just keep going, right? Even if you can't be public, right? Most people would just stop and go, I got nothing that I can do. But I got my initial members via networking and in the DMs from other groups that I was a member of. There's usually always a way if you just think it through and then be prepared to execute on the work, okay? It's never too soon to start building your personal brand and actually start talking. There's always going to be something that you can share, the stuff that you're learning, people that you're learning from, the books that you're reading, the lessons that you're learning in real time, the wins, the failures, and then you can move and evolve and pivot in real time. But the sooner you start, the better. Even if it's to a tiny audience of a couple of hundred people initially, that can blossom into something really, really powerful, right? And then over time, you can add new platforms. You can pivot your messaging. You can expand your audience. You can shift niches. You can expand your offerings. This is exactly what I did. But it all started with that initial audience who I gave a ton of my time to. I gave a ton of value to, stuff that other people were charging them for. And it provided the foundation in a time where it would have been really easy for me to go, I can't do it. I've got these limitations. I've got the job. I can't be public. But you find a way, and it can provide a really, really powerful catalyst that can serve you for a really, really long time. Okay. So the key lesson here, it's not about Facebook groups. It's not about affiliate marketing. It's not even about, you should go and use these exact monetization methods, or you should host a live challenge. It's if you're sitting on the sidelines and you're going, I can't do this because, or there's fear holding you back, find a way, because it can be the catalyst for really, really big things down the line. And so I wanted to share that story because hopefully that inspires at least one person to go and start to overcome whatever the limiting factors are, be they external limiting factors like mine were, or internal limiting factors that you need to work through. If they go and start and get moving with their personal brand, I know it can do huge things for them in the long term. Okay. Appreciate you hanging out with me in this one. Go and build that brand. Go start monetizing it. There's a lot of fun stuff that's on the other side of building a really profitable personal brand. I'll talk to you in the next one. Cheers.